Hello everybody and welcome back. It's Chris Fisher RPT, the Blind Woodturner, but you already knew that. And this is Program 3, Episode 3 in a series of basic beginners instructional videos aimed at the blind and visually impaired community. There are apparently more and more, which is great news, blind and visually impaired people wanting to take up wood turning, which is absolutely brilliant, and straight from the heart to all of you. You can do this, you've got it 100%, and a few of you are already obviously up and running and doing amazing things. But anyway, I digress. This one is all about some basic tools that will get you up and running, and what I consider a good starter kit, and you should be able to do lots and lots of amazing things with these. So I've got them laid out here on a piece of non-slip matting, and I'm going to start from the top to the bottom. I've got my talking tape measure here, so I can just let you hear some of the dimensions, not of the handles but of the actual steel on them. So we're going to start right from the top. A spindle roughing out gouge. So let's get the boring bit out of the way. Health and safety with this tool: never ever use this tool, or be tempted to use this tool on a bowl. It is a spindle roughing gouge working between centres on spindle work. If you use it on a bowl and you don't have a catastrophic accident, you are very lucky. Don't even go there. If you see anyone doing it or hear anyone doing it, take them to one side and say, I don't want to ever hear you doing that again. The makeup, the construction of the roughing gouge means that the way it's constructed, it is fitted into the handle on quite a slim tang, whereas the rest of the steel is rolled over to form a wide, deep flute. It hasn't got the strength for bowl turning, and also because the flute really curves round on itself, you have these little pointy, what I call horns, the tips at the top of the bevel. You'll have a catastrophic catch with them as well, especially not being able to see what you do. Just do not do it. Sighted wood turners, do not do it. Essential tool for getting spindle work roughed down into round, balanced and safe, and giving us a great reference point to start shaping and creating your project. So I'm going to turn my talking tape measure on now.
0 millimeters.
So I've got it in millimeters, just so we can get quite accurate.
67 millimeters.
That's not it. I've just got to close it down.
66 millimeters. 30 millimeters.
So this is 30 millimeters across. So you're getting on for about 1.25 inches across. It's a bit thinner on the inside flute, and that's that hollowed out portion that's like a channel, a groove. So very, very useful tool. With practice you can actually start shaping with them, but initially in the early days you just want it for knocking off your corners. Really, really helpful. A must in your toolkit. And then second down, we're going
off in 5 seconds.
We're going down to a parting tool. So a parting tool can be used in a couple of different ways. I use it for, yes, parting work off, but also for using it to put grooves in for decoration and as reference points, datums, somewhere I can hook my talking tape measure into and measure things. So it's got really, really lots and lots of great uses. You can get them thicker, and it's like a parting and beading tool, and you can use them to roll over beads, etc. This one is
0 millimeters.
at the tip, and I'll explain the tip in a minute.
3 millimeters.
So it's about 3 millimeters thick, the actual steel. So you'll get a 3 millimeter groove in your work, and it goes to almost like a spear point, an arrowhead point. Don't use them at high speed. They do get very hot and they can then jam. So keep your speed at about 1000 RPM, I would suggest, and also do a groove and then make a secondary groove right next to it to allow a bit of wiggle room so it doesn't grab due to friction and expansion. And you don't want it to get that hot that it'll lose the temper on the tool. Next one down, so these are all traditional tools, by the way. The next one down, we have a 3/8 inch. I don't need to measure that. I'm going imperial here. A 3/8 inch, but I will just
1 millimeter. 0. 60 millimeters.
So the steel on this,
12 millimeters.
it's saying 12 millimeters. It's known as a 3/8 bowl gouge. It has a bevel on the end, which I have changed from the factory grind to one that I'm familiar with. So it was reprofiled using the Tormek, kept razor sharp. And the difference between a bowl gouge and a spindle gouge is that the flute on the bowl gouge is deeper, for one, and some people will have a different grind on the bevel than they would with a spindle gouge. Great versatile tool, great for shaping bowls on the outside, on the inside, push cut, pull cut, shear cuts. Great tool to use. Next along is a similar size, although this has got a shorter length on the steel from the ferrule to the tip, and it's a spindle gouge, very similar but with a shallower flute. So for working on spindle work and rolling over beads, forming coves, and again, when we get into some basic lessons, you know, I'll explain how you can get up and running and some tips to help you get good bevel contact and use it safely. So just to remind you, from top, roughing gouge, parting tool, bowl gouge and spindle gouge. Just 1 second, folks. Just having to pause, folks, for a cup of tea. Shout hi, Nicola.
Hello, sorry.
Cup of tea and a biscuit there. Thanks, love. So, sorry about that. So roughing gouge, parting tool, bowl gouge, spindle gouge. Next one is a scraper. It's a round nose scraper, and very versatile, but really for finishing work. I know a lot of people, when they get started, will be using this to hollow out bowls and do a lot of a project with one. In the early days, and I'm going to say this to you now, if you are a bit apprehensive and nervous and you end up using the scraper a bit more than you should be, don't stress over it. You know, it is a versatile tool, and we don't want you to get hurt, obviously, you know, if you're low vision or blind. So the scraper here is
0 millimeters. 20 millimeters.
So it's 20 millimeters across, so it's about 3/4 of an inch.
0 millimeters. 0 millimeters.
That'll turn off in a second. Very versatile. You use, obviously, if you're using it for finishing, very, very gentle cut. Leave it very sharp,
Turning off in 5 seconds.
and you will get really, really very fine, almost angel gossamer little shavings off. And you know, it leaves a great surface that should require very little sanding before you start your final finishing and polishing. So very versatile, great bit of kit, and essential really. And do not beat yourself up if you're struggling in the early days and you find yourself going to the scraper a lot. I know a lot of sighted wood turners that did that in the early days, so do not beat yourself up. You know, I'm certainly not here to judge you, but yeah, traditional tool. And then finally here at the bottom, I've got 2 Carbide tools that were custom made for me. Now I've got a full set, but if you want to have some carbide in your tool bag, again, to help you maybe work a bit quicker and a bit safer, point of order, Carbide tools are not infallible. They are not idiot proof, and you can still have catches and diggings, but they're, you know, far less frequent, and you can, even with no vision, get quite a hurry on with them, and you're not having to worry about the bevel contact. You can really just get more speed and be more confident with them. I've got a round one here which I would call general purpose, which you can shape and hollow out with. Use it on spindle work, bowl work, very versatile. Use it on practically anything. And then I've got a square carbide cutter here, which is great. You can rough out with it. You can do tenons. You could shape with it as well, but being blind, you might just be wary of catching in one of the corners on the square one. So I'd use it for roughing out, marking tenons, plunge cuts, things like that. But very versatile. Again, you're blind or visually impaired. If you want to use carbide and someone gives you a hard time over it, tell them, you know, that we're working with a different set of rules, really. And, you know, ultimately, you know, safety is our #1 priority. And if you can't see what you're doing and you want to use carbide, then go for it. A lot, you know, thousands of sighted wood turners get into it, just buy carbide, don't even go near traditional tools, and you can be up and running very quickly and very safely. It's just that for me, I taught myself with traditional tools, you will get a better understanding of wood turning. You will become a much safer wood turner, knowing all about safe bevel contact, and we can talk about A, B, C. Anchor the tool, B, rub the bevel, and then C, cut. But yeah, traditional tools, you will become a much more proficient and safer wood turner, and then after a bit of time with traditional, you can go on to carbide. But like me, I mix it up, use a mixture of the two, depending on the project, depending on the time. I use carbide a lot in demonstrations, you know, mixed with the traditional stuff if I need to get the work completed by the end of the demo. So these carbide tools that I've got here, they've got lovely chunky tactile knobs, so the shafts are detachable, you can interchange them. Along the top of the shaft there is quarter-inch grooves machined along the top, so you can use them as a bit of a depth gauge, and that's will be covered in another episode, marking and estimating depth, so you don't make a lot of wooden funnels. So there you have it, a bit of a shorter video really, and yeah, basic set of tools there will get you up and running. Obviously we're going to talk about abrasives and sanding as well, and polishing and things like that, and we will even evolve onto some power carving and stuff later on. But this is going to be quite a long running series because there's a lot to cover, but each one isn't going to be that in depth. It's going to give you, you know, a ballpark idea of what's involved. You know, unfortunately there will be an element of self-study involved in it for you. You can refer to this video, but you know, ultimately as well, you're going to have to, you know, either join a club and have some tuition, or if you do it like I did and go self-taught, you know, we are talking thousands of hours of practice, which never stops and should never stop. So there you have it, folks, an introduction to a basic tool setup. Hope you've enjoyed it, and in the next episode I will be talking about some ways that we can measure and mark wood. So thanks a lot.